Alrighty, welcome to Math C Unit 2, Day 7. Woo-hoo. Today we're going to talk about conjugates. So when you see a fraction with imaginary numbers, like what we have here, what we're going to do is we're going to try and get rid of that fraction. We're going to simplify it. So I know we didn't really necessarily talk about dividing them, but remember, fractions are division. So when we divide it, we're actually going to be multiplying by something special. So we're going to multiply by the denominator with just the opposite sign. So that's what the conjugate is. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply this first one by 4 minus 3i. Now I'm going to do that to both the top and the bottom. The reason being is we know we can manipulate any number as long as we do it to everything. So if we have an expression, we have to multiply it to everything in the expression. If we have a fraction, we need to do it to top and bottom. It's very similar to when you are multiplying by a common denominator in order to add or subtract fractions. Kind of the same idea as to why we do it here. So on top, we're going to, guess what? FOIL, because we are multiplying by a group of something. So 5 times 4 is 20. 5 times negative 3i is negative 15i. Negative 2i times 4 is negative 8i. Negative 2i times negative 3i is 6i squared. So remember, that was just the top, so that is my numerator. For my denominator, 4 times 4 is 16. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12i. 3 times 4 is positive 12i. And 3i times 3i is negative 9i squared. So if you notice on the bottom, my imaginary stuff ends up canceling out. That's the whole point of doing the conjugate. It's because we want to get rid of that imaginary stuff on the bottom. So the whole point of this is we'll basically only need to, on the bottom, multiply by the first number times first number and last number times last number. Only because of this special property that happens here. On the top, we're still going to FOIL, guys. Okay, so let's go back to that top. I got 20 minus 23i plus 6 times negative 1. Oops, I forgot the 6 part. Just wrote times negative 1. Over 16 minus 9 times negative 1. Okay, well, this turns my 6 into a minus 6, so I have 20 minus 6, which is 14, minus 23i, over 16 plus 9, which gives me 25. If I wanted to, I could split up my fraction, but I don't need to, so I'm not going to. So my answer here is 14 minus 23i, all divided by 25. Okay, so we're going to start this the exact same way as we just did the first one. So we're going to multiply by the opposite sign on the bottom. So I have 3 minus 2i times 3 minus 2i. If you want to put those in parentheses, you're more than welcome to. 3 times 3 is 9. 3 times negative 2i is negative 6i. Negative 2i times 3 is negative 6i again. Negative 2i times negative 2i is positive 4i squared. Remember, FOIL. Top. Bottom, we can do our fancy thing, because we're going to cancel it out. So 3 times 3 is 9. And then, excuse me, see, I'm not even doing it in the right order now. I just want to do it all. 2i times negative 2i is negative 4i squared. So that gives us 9 minus 12i plus 4 times negative 1 all over 9 minus 4 times negative 1. All right, 4 times negative 1 gives me minus 4, so I have 9 minus 4, which gives me 5. So 5 minus 12i on top. Negative, negative turns positive, so I have 9 plus 4, which gives me 13. So my grand old answer is 5 minus 12i all over 13. Alright, next one. We're going to multiply by 1 plus 2i. Both top and bottom. I get 3 times 1, which gives me 3. Plus 6i, because I get 3 times 2i. Then I get 3 times 1, which gives me 3i. And then I get 3i times 2i, which gives me 6i squared. 1 times 1 is 1. Negative 2i times 2i is negative 4i squared. So then I get 3 plus 9i plus 6 times negative 1. Remember, I squared is still negative 1. Over 1 minus 4 times negative 1. 6 times negative 1 gives me minus 6 over here. So I have 3 minus 6, which gives me negative 3. Plus 9i. Over 4 plus 1, which is 5. So negative 3 plus 9i, all divided by 5. Alright, we got this third one here. Excuse me, fourth one. I promise I can count. Again, we're going to multiply by the conjugate, or the same thing on the bottom with the opposite sign. So we're going to multiply by 2 minus 3i. 1 times 2 gives me 2. 1 times negative 3i. Excuse me, 1 times negative 3i, yeah. It's negative 3i. 3i times 2 is plus 6i. 3i times negative 3i is negative 9i squared. 2 times 2 is 4. 3i times negative 3i is negative 9i squared. I get 2 plus 3i, because negative 3i plus 6 gives me positive 3. Minus 9 times negative 1. All over 4 minus 9 times negative 1. Negative, negative turns positive, so then I get 2 plus 9, which gives me 11. Plus 3i, all over 4 plus, again, plus 9, which gives me another 13. So I have 11 plus 3i, all divided by 13. Alright, for these last two, I will get you started, but I want you to pause the video, work through it on your own, and then unpause the video to check your answer. So you should know that we're going to multiply by the opposite of the bottom, so 1 minus 2i over 1 minus 2i. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times negative 2i is negative 8i. Negative I times 1 is negative I. Negative I times negative 2i is plus 2i squared. 1 times 1 is 1. Excuse me, 2i times negative 2i is negative 4i squared. Okay, go ahead and pause that video. Keep working. Check your answer in a minute. Get all my stuff put together. Get my final answer is 2 minus 9i all over 5. This last one again, multiply by 2 minus 3i over 2 minus 3i. 2 times 2 is 4. Then I get negative 6i. Then I get negative 8i. And then I get positive 12i squared. All over 4 minus 9i squared. I go ahead and simplify, and I get negative 8 minus 14i all over 13. Alright, that's all I got for you. See you tomorrow.